Welcome back. I pray this is ministering to you. And if it's not ministering to you directly, I guarantee you have family, you have friends that you can help them process this now and process an offense like what I'm teaching you now. You can actually help other people. And so, why do people not forgive? Why do so many people withhold forgiveness? I've seen spouses withhold forgiveness, wanting to punish each other, wanting for the other party to suffer, not realizing you are the one that's suffering in withholding the forgiveness. I've seen parents withhold forgiveness from children, children withhold forgiveness from parents. I mean, I could tell stories that would just blow your mind how that children are withholding forgiveness to a parent and they're literally tormented. Everything Jesus said, I can see it in their lives. And they think their parents are the problem instead of their unforgiveness being their problem. And so one of the reasons people refuse to forgive or withhold forgiveness is they just don't know how to forgive. So I want to encourage you to continue to grow in this and just learn what I'm saying, go over and over it, and just learn how to be a person that's quick to forgive and how to do it. How to do it. Number two, we talked about how some people think there's a form of injustice if I forgive this person, that somehow or another they're getting away with it and that they deserve to suffer. And that's just a bad attitude. And you don't want to go there. And you have friends, I guarantee, and family that have gone there. You need to help them come back. Number three, some falsely believe it is a compromise of our morals. I've been told this. I've had people try to justify their unforgiveness, and they think if they forgive, it somehow or another compromises their morals. What in the world do people mean by that? Well, if I forgive them, they think they've got away with it. They'll think they've got away with it. They'll think it's okay to treat people like they've treated me and that there's no consequences and they need to suffer. They need to have consequences. They're going to have their own consequences that happen through whatever they done to you. You and I can't invoke the consequences of their sin. It doesn't work that way, dear ones. And you don't have to fear it's a compromise somehow or another of morals and they're going to get the idea it's okay. God is going to take care of that. God is going to avenge each and every one of us. And people aren't getting away with a thing. See, when I forgive somebody, it's not that I'm saying it's okay what they did and they got away with it. No, when I forgive somebody, I'm turning them over to God. I'm saying I let go of this debt and God has control of it now. See, as long as I'm in unforgiveness, I'm hanging on, hindering God from ministering to that person and dealing with that person. But the minute I forgive, I release them of debt, but I release them also to God. And God begins to deal with them now in a supernatural way. God is the judge of the hearts of men and will always balance the scales of justice. Number four reason people won't forgive is there is sometimes a process of going to someone in an offense and they just want to avoid conflict. It is easier to avoid conflict and just let something go and harbor it in your heart than to confront somebody with something. And I get that. Crucial conversations are a part of my life and things that have to be dealt with in ministry and in the church and in people's lives. In my personal life, there's times I've had to go to somebody and I've had to confront something. And I'm not talking about being mean or mad, but being very kind and humble about, look, I'm struggling with something and this has offended me and we need to talk about it. That is hard for people to do, especially in this new age of technology and Facebook and Twitter and just the social media platforms that people are trying to communicate in. People are having a hard time going face to face with anybody and saying, hey, I have a problem here. This hurt me, etc., etc. You cannot suppress those hurts in unforgiveness and they go away. Number five, I've already dealt with. People are confused over emotional pain, forgetting, and trusting. And I've already dealt with that. So forgiveness releases people of their debt. It releases them to God, and He is a righteous judge, and it releases me of torment. Man, I just pray that this has helped you and that you begin to understand this process, because all of us have to understand the process of forgiveness and letting things go. Again, there's some things that happen to us, and I'll get to this in some broadcasts coming up, that when we have these imaginary offenses, we got to learn to deal with that in our prayer closet and personally. When somebody accidentally offends us, we've got to learn to be merciful to people. But what about actual offense? What about somebody that truly does this wrong? They know what they're doing. They did it intentionally. That's what malice means. It means intent to hurt. Man, there's been people in my life, there's no doubt, they intended to hurt me. They wanted to inflict pain in my life. And how do I deal with that? Again, Luke chapter 17, the scriptures that we've been using in our main context, Jesus said, offenses are going to come, but woe to him through whom they come. He talked about a form of judgment. If you're a disperser of your offense, if you stumble in sin, it's one thing, but if you're helping other people stumble in sin, that's evil, that's wrong. And then he talked about forgiving, and if your brother repents, you have to forgive him. We have to learn to go to people and address things lovingly and kindly in the sense of forgiven. So how do we do that? How do we guard our heart? How do we keep our heart? Then how do we address a transgress against us? Proverbs chapter 4 says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of your heart comes the issues of your life. We have to learn to guard our hearts. We have to guard our hearts. We have to keep our hearts. And he says, for out of the heart comes the issues of our life. The word guard in the Hebrew, it literally says, keep your heart with all diligence. For out of your heart will come all these issues of your life. So that word keep in the Hebrew literally means guard. Guard. And he says, guard it with all diligence. With all diligence. You have to be conscious of this. You have to be conscious of what's being sown into your heart, because the devil's trying to sow seeds. They're called weeds. And God is trying to sow seeds. It's called his word. And both of those seeds will affect you and the issues of your life. The word issues in the Hebrew in Proverbs chapter 4, it literally means boundaries or borders of your heart. Wow. The boundaries and borders of our heart are determined by what gets sown into the heart. And so we have to learn to guard our heart. We have to learn to be quick to forgive. We have to be taught. That's what I'm endeavoring to do now. I wasn't taught. It took me a long time to get this figured out, and I'm trying to shorten that timeline for you. We have to be taught to guard the heart. We have to be taught, how do I deal with an imaginary offense? Things that come into my head. How do I deal with accidental offense? Man, I meet people all the time, again, that are just offended about nothing and little bitty things people do. And then what about an actual offense? Intent to hurt, intent to harm. And so Proverbs says, I have to guard my heart. But let me give you a quick revelation in closing. In John chapter 20, Jesus has been raised from the dead. He's not in the tomb. Mary goes to the tomb. She was the first one to go and see that the Lord wasn't in there and that he was risen. And she was distraught because she thought somebody had stole the body of Jesus. There were two angels at the bed, or the place where Jesus was laid in the tomb. There were two angels, cherubim angels in type. Two men is what it looked like to her. And they asked, what are you here for? What are you looking for? And she said, I'm looking for my Lord. And evidently they've taken him. And they simply said to her, well, he's not here. He's not in here. So she goes outside the tomb. Now listen to this. She sees Jesus. She doesn't recognize him. And the Bible says there in John 20, and again, I'll probably pick this up in the next broadcast. It says she supposed he was a gardener. She supposed he was a gardener. He looked like a gardener. He was dressed like a gardener. That is awesome. And she didn't recognize him. And anyway, she asked him, did he know where they may have taken Jesus, her Lord? And she didn't even recognize him when he spoke a few words. But then finally he called her name and he said, Mary. And the minute he said Mary, she recognized his voice. The sheep hear his voice and they know his voice. and the voice of a stranger they will not follow. And so she lights up, my Lord, my God. What I want you to see is the first revelation of Jesus after the resurrection was he was a gardener. He looked like a gardener. See, the first man, Adam, was the gardener in the first creation, and that gardener failed and slung all of the garden and creation into chaos. Jesus is the second man, the last Adam, and listen, he's the gardener of the new creation, and he is taking his glory through you and me into the world. That's why he doesn't want offense in my heart. He doesn't want unforgiveness in my heart or bitterness to defile me. Jesus is the gardener of my heart. And listen to me, he's the best weed puller ever. Amen. He's the best weed puller ever. While I have to guard my heart with all diligence, I'm not alone in the gardening of my heart. You can repent even of unforgiveness, and Jesus, the gardener, can take it away. Well, that's where I'm going to pick up in my next session, and I hope that you can be with us. I encourage you to go to PastorDuane.com, PastorDuane.com, and that will take you to our homepage where we have all of these different resources available to help you with your children, your marriage. I mean, anything you can think of, I believe there's something in there that'll speak into your life. You can be enriched, encouraged, and equipped through that website. I sure hope you visit it. I love you. Thanks for being a part of the Victory Life broadcast.
This free teaching is only possible because of the generous donations of our DSM Impact partners. Visit PastorDuane.com to learn how you can join and help make an impact in our world. We hope you enjoyed this message. Thanks for watching.